Hello and welcome back to a series of lectures on herbal medicine. So far we have talked about those plants which can be domesticated at various habitats, but the one that we have selected for today's discussion is a plant which has preference for only desired conditions. Normally, this is a plant which is seen at high altitudes, ranging from 1800 meters to about 3500 meters above sea level. Yet, it has been domesticated successfully. Dependence has been achieved on the basis of what physical characters of soil, of the habitat, as well as the populations surrounding this plant has been possible. The plant that we have selected is botanically known as Gentiana kuru, and this is a plant which is at present labeled as critically endangered. That is, during the last 10 years, its population as well as the density within a population has been reduced by about 75%. That is primarily because of overexploitation as well as destruction of the habitats in which this plant is normally available. This plant is important primarily because its rhizome, that is the main perinating organ of this plant, is an important source of a drug which is commercially used for various treatments. At present, the status of this plant is so threatened that there are needs that one should assess what the basic requirements are and how one can manage its domestication, commercialization, as well as conservation. Popularly, this plant is known as Nilkant, while as commercially its name is Gentian. However, in Hindi, it has been referred in two different ways, where one and the most common one is the name Karu, while as the second one is Kutki. In some of the books, the references mainly are towards Karu, while as a few only mention the name Kutki. On the basis of the usage, it has been seen that the rhizome is harvested, and that harvesting in turn affects the survival pattern of this plant in natural habitats, because the rhizome is actually harvested at a stage when the plant has not attained the flowering. That is, wherein the main propagule, that is the seed, has not been produced by the plant of which the rhizome is being harvested. Generally, it has been seen that if harvesting is carried out at a stage once the flowering has started, the rhizome is not as productive or medicinally as useful as the one once it is harvested in the vegetative phase. Normally, it has been seen that once the plant is harvested, the conditions and the stage of harvesting is in turn related to the quality as well as the quantity of the product. In natural habitats, it has been seen that this plant has a preference for three main conditions. One, where it prefers light sandy textured soils, wherein the soils do have a water retention potential as well as a proper seepage. In case such soils are not available, it selects what are referred to as the loamy soils. In these loamy soils, again, the plant has a preference of those areas where the moisture retention within that loamy soil is higher, as well as the plant is able to actually use whatever resources, be it aquatic or sometimes even minerals or sometimes other organic nutrients, are available in that type of the soil. The third soil in which the plant has a preference is the clay soil. But again here, this soil should be rich in fertilizers, both inorganic as well as organic, and it should have a potential to retain whatever is added in the form of fertilizers. In addition to these three soil types, the plant also has a preference for two major physical conditions. One, where the plant prefers those soils which remain constantly well drained, that is, wherein the moisture is not retained by the soil, that will in turn affect the quality as well as the quantity of the production. Second character is where the plant has a preference for semi-shady areas, that is, wherein in the morning hours the plant should be continuously exposed to sunny conditions, while as during the noon, that is the peak of sunny conditions, it should be partially in shade also. It has been seen that these two conditions directly affect the development as well as the productive potential of the plant. These physical conditions, that is of the soil as well as the conditions of sun, are maintained. It has been seen that the plant attains a peak of production by the months of September and October. However, here again, the stage of harvesting again plays an important role. It has been seen that if a plant is harvested once it is in complete vegetative phase, in that case, the quality as well as the quantity of the active components, that is the medicinally useful part, rhizome, is superior as compared to those ones wherein we see that the plant has attained a vegetative phase only. At the time of harvesting, one must have a selective preference of the method of digging as well as trying to store this plant prior to extraction of the active principles. Now, it has been seen that if it is harvested and kept in sunny conditions, that sunny condition has been seen to directly affect the quality as well as the quantity of the active principle. If after harvesting it is tried to be stored under shady conditions with a partial exposure to hot or heaty conditions, the active principle, that is the main alkaloid within the rhizome, is getting stored properly, and at the time of extraction its quality as well as quantity remains commercially suitable. Once it is harvested, it has been seen that the storage for prolonged duration does not in any way affect the active composition, that is the alkaloid concentration within the rhizomes. Ordinarily, it can be stored for a period of about 3 to 6 months under controlled conditions. Yet, if the need of storage is prolonged, in such cases, it can be stored at about 4 degrees Celsius for as long as one desires. But in that case also, the humidity should be maintained below 50%. It has been seen that if any variation, either in temperature above 4 degrees Celsius or humidity above 50%, the quality as well as the quantity of the active principle gets varied. Now, once this rhizome is subjected to chemical extraction, so far 3 major alkaloids have been identified within this. These are, number 1, gentianol A, which is the most dominant quantity, wherein its concentration has been seen to vary from about 4 to 4.9%. Alkaloid 2 is gentianol B, wherein concentration is slightly lower, 3.5 to about 3.7%. And C is gentiol, wherein the concentration is only about 0.9 to 1.2%. It has been seen that these 3 alkaloids after extraction can be used for pharmaceutical manufacturers, and in that manufacture, whatever drugs are being prepared, they have so far been found useful in treatment of many different diseases. The major ailments for which the alkaloids are used as antihelmintic, wherein the liquid extract of the rhizomes is recommended for usage. Then it has also been used as anti-inflammatory, wherein the powdered form of the rhizome is recommended, but the quantity as well as the pattern of consumption is distinct, with the quantity being about 1 gram in the morning, followed by a waitage of about 12 hours and taking 1 more gram in the evening. As antiseptic and as a bitter tonic, the pattern of usage is entirely different. It has been seen that after harvesting and storing rhizome properly, if it is powdered and that powder is dissolved in a filtered and distilled water, that water can be regularly consumed during the day, usually at an interval of about 4, sometimes even 6 hours. In case of children, the recommendation is that it should be only taken once per day. That is, the extract should be taken only once per day by the children. However, at present, 4 new uses have been discovered. These are, number 1, the extract of the rhizomes as a chalagogue. Number 2, extract of the rhizomes again as an immunogogue, and the powdery form of the rhizome as a febrifuge, and powdery form of the rhizome as a refrigerant. However, these 4 new discoveries have been seen applicable only if the rhizome after harvesting is immediately dried under proper conditions and used for overcoming the recommended ailments. The two more treatments for which this rhizome is used is number one, stomachache, wherein the recommendation is that after harvesting and storing properly for about 6 months, the rhizome should be powdered, and that powder should be dissolved in distilled water, and in the morning prior to having breakfast that should be consumed, and it will act as a stomachache. Second important use is the rhizome as a tonic. However, the method of usage of this rhizome as a tonic varies. Among adults, that is those who are above 30 years of age, they can directly consume the harvested rhizome in the mornings, and after waiting for about 30 to 40 minutes can have the normal breakfast. However, in case of children, the recommendation is that it should be consumed only if the children have already had a breakfast and after having a rest period of about 1 hour. That means we have to wait after breakfast for about 1 hour in the children and then recommend this rhizome as a tonic. Now, these uses have been seen to be operative throughout the tribal areas, especially in Northwest Himalayas. If we compare these usages with the civilized citizen or the modern citizens, there the pattern of the consumption as well as the uses are tremendously variable. Now, among these, the most important are wherein the patients who are suffering from either gastric or duodenal ulceration, in those the recommendation is that after the root is harvested, this root should be dried for about 15 to 20 days under controlled conditions. And after drying, this root should be kept in water for about 24 hours. And those extracts then should be consumed by those who are suffering from gastric and duodenal ulcers. And it has been seen that if the consumption pattern is continued for a period of about 15 to 20 days, the immediate positive effects have been seen on these ulcerations. Now, at present, this usage has been analyzed on the basis of the chemical composition as well as the methods of drying and harvesting on that chemical composition, wherein two major recommendations have been made. These are, first, once we harvest the rhizome, after harvesting, one must try to immediately wash it so that whatever adjoining soil components are there, they are washed away, and then after washing, try to dry it under controlled conditions without getting contaminated with any other product of a plant or of a chemical. Second recommendation is that at the time of consumption, that is after keeping it in water for some time, second recommendation is that first one should try to wash it with distilled water thoroughly so that no contamination either of the soil or of the container in which it was stored is seen in that rhizome. And it has been seen that if these two steps are followed, the effects of this on the gastric and duodenal ulcers are as positive as in any other recommended drug. Now, on the basis of these usages, the plant, that is Gentiana kuru, has been tremendously exploited, and that has necessitated its domestication and conservation. Here, the methods that are suitable for its conservation, for its commercialization, for its production on a large scale, necessitated to analyze what basic requirements one can fulfill. Two basic strategies have been developed. One, wherein one can use the sexual means of propagation, that is, the seeds can be collected and these seeds in turn can be used for the propagation and commercial production. Second is wherein the rhizome, that is, the commercially useful part of the plant, can be used as a means of propagation. However, being two different methods, seed being sexual means of propagation, rhizome being the vegetative means of propagation, has necessitated the development of two basic methods for conservation and then commercialization of its cultivation. If we use a seed, it has been seen that after harvesting the seed, one should try to immediately sow it, but sow it under control conditions. The control condition means wherein whatever physical conditions or requirements the seeds are in need of, and whatever nutrients or fertilizers one has to add to the soil are under our control. And whatever temperature requirements are, we are able to maintain so that the seeds are able to give rise to a healthy seedling. Now, after harvesting, one should try to prepare a bed under controlled conditions and try to add organic fertilizers to these beds and sow the seeds thinly on the surface itself. They should not be sown deeper enough because it has been seen that the seeds are very small and they are not able to penetrate thick deposition of soil on top of them. After sowing, these seeds should be thinly covered with organic matter or sometimes even the dried grasses, and one should try to add partial irrigation on the surface so that the soil remains moist. The seedlings start developing. At that stage, one should regularly monitor what the need of irrigation is and whether there is a need of creating artificial light conditions so that these seedlings are able to attain a proper height prior to transplantation into the main cultivation fields. Ordinarily, it has been seen that if we sow these seedlings in the month of September or even sometimes in the month of October, they attain a height of about 3 to 4 inches in the month of November or sometimes even in December. But prior to the spring, they should not be transplanted into the main field because it has been seen that they cannot sustain the variability in temperature or variability in other climatic conditions. In the next growing season, March, sometimes even April, depending upon the climatic conditions, is the best seasons once we are able to transplant these into the main field for first domestication and subsequently for commercialization. Now, in this second method, that is wherein we try to use the rhizome for vegetative propagation, in that case, again, the stage of harvesting the rhizome is very important. And usually, in this case, it has been seen that one must try to harvest the rhizome in the vegetative pattern or vegetative phase of the plant itself. That is, once the plant has not shown any signs of development of the inflorescence or the flowers. The rhizomes are being harvested, they are being cleaned, and after cleaning, these rhizomes are longitudinally split into 4, 6 or 8 segments depending upon the size of the rhizome. Usually, in each segment, one must have an apical portion of the meristem so that each in turn has a growth apex. These cuttings are in turn to be planted in the well-prepared garden beds and monitored regularly till first stages of development of the vegetative buds are seen at the apex of each of these rhizome portions. Once this apical bud portions development starts, one must regularly irrigate it and try to add at this stage organic fertilizers, because it has been seen that addition of inorganic fertilizers has side effects on the developmental pattern as well as the survival pattern of the plant in the controlled conditions also. Now, once the vegetative development continues, one must regularly monitor them till they attain a size or attain a height wherein they can be transplanted into the main fields. Now, ordinarily, again, in the rhizomatous cuttings also, one has to wait till the next growing season, that is in the months of March or in April, once we can retransplant these rhizomatous cuttings into the main fields for first domestication and subsequently for commercialization. These two methods, that is using the seed and the rhizome, are the major or standard methods of its commercialization as well as conservation. Under controlled conditions, that is wherein we want to not only domesticate it but also commercialize its production, one can also use a third, that is the most modern method of its propagation, wherein we can use the vegetative propagation of the foliage, which can be useful in multiplying a large number of leaves into large number of plants. In this case, what we do is, at the peak of the vegetative phase, the shoots are cut off. Shoots, that is the branches which are bearing at their apex the leaves, they are cut out, and these segments are then sown in the vicinity of the parental plant. Now, it has been seen that ordinarily this method can be carried out at any part of the growing season, yet 2 seasons have been seen more appropriate for such methods. One, the month of June, July, and second, the month of September, October. If we do it in the month of June and July, it has been seen that in that case, the plant may attain a stage of reaching even a reproductive cycle. However, if the same method is used in the month of September or even October, in that case, it remains vegetative till the next growing season, and in the next growing season, it attains a stage of entering the reproductive cycle. On the basis of all these characters, it seems that despite being an subalpine plant, despite being adapted to extremely harsh conditions in natural habitats, one can not only conserve it but commercialize it. But in those cases, one has to regularly monitor what the requirements of the plant are and try to see how he can, or the cultivator can, actually modify the conditions so that the productive potential, adaptability pattern, as well as the quality of the product is at par with the product that we have available in the natural habitats. On this criteria basis, it has been seen that many important centers, especially those which are concerned with the threat to the medicinal plants, they are providing not only physical facilities but sometimes even technical and financial facilities to first domesticate these plants and then try to commercially develop strategies so that they can trade these to those which are in need of the product. Those people who are interested in not only domesticating these but also commercially cultivating these should first assess the physical as well as the other requirements to fulfill the needs, so that they can not only commercialize their cultivation but at the same time also help the people to develop strategies for their conservation. I hope those of you who are interested will follow the selected pattern of domesticating these plants first and then trying to commercialize these so that this can become a basic source of revenue for those who are at present looking for alternative arrangements for financial assistance. In future also, we will hope to see that the pattern of the users is first emphasizing the conservation and subsequently emphasizing the commercial cultivation of these plants. Thank you.